Welcome to Knife Week. We are going to go over all of the knives that I got this month. And if you want, you can look at a specific knife. I have them in chapters down below. It's all going to be really rapid fire with really short little sections talking about each knife. So since we have so many on the table, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I recently received a package from Coast, and it mostly had flashlights, but there were these 3 knives inside. So I want to talk about them briefly, but remember that the context here is that these are knives that do show up in big box stores. So it's kind of a different market. It's not necessarily going to be comparable to the knives we will find online. So first things first, the utility knife. I actually really like this. I covered this in my utility knife video, I think it was November of last year. It's a really good price and it's easy to swap out the blades. You push in and down and that swaps it out. Pushing just down doesn't do anything. You have to push in first. You can swap it around and it comes with these blades that are more like a standard blade. So let me show you. These are all the blades it comes with. It could also attach with this. Really cool. Now, I don't know what the steel is for that. My guess is it's not great, but it would be a great opportunity for them to release some with decent steels, right? Maybe at least an 8CR would be great, 8CR 13 MOV, but you know, that's just my thought. Either way, I'm actually a pretty big fan of this. I talked about it a little bit more, but just kind of a recap. It has a good deep carry pocket clip with flush screws. It has a secondary lock to lock it open, and it's got great grip. Enough said. I actually really like this one, and you'll find that at big box stores, and that can be pretty solid. Now this one, if we're comparing it to things online, let's be real, it's not going to stack up well. But if I walked into a Home Depot and needed a knife, this wouldn't be a terrible option. We have 7CR17 on this, kind of like low budget steel, but you know, there we go. But it does have a 4-way directional clip. So that's something. It's a spot in all places for it. I like that. This is an assisted opening knife, but what I do like is that it's not putting up resistance till right there. So that actually is pretty easy to close, and it's never going to close on your finger. So there's something to be said for that if you're doing assisted knives like this one, and the spring is really very aggressive, which is a good thing. You have a safety lock to keep it from opening, which a lot of assisted knives do. One of the reasons I don't like assisted knives, but I gotta say, not a bad execution, and it's a nice contoured handle, something I like a lot, and if you're gonna use it for work, pretty reasonable. Now the next one is a complete departure from a work knife in the conventional sense. What it is, however, is a great front pocket knife looking like a pen kind of situation, right? It kind of has that CEO look to it. Now this one, it's very pointy, so there is that, and it did come very sharp. I'm not fully sure what steel this is in because it doesn't really state it. But what I am going to say to them is if you're going to make a CEO style knife, it definitely has to be a liner lock, because notice that the frame lock takes up about half of the blade, half of the handle. What happens is there's very little room for me to put my hands. And if I'm putting my finger there, I'm actually pressing down on this lock, which makes deploying it a little bit more difficult. It's a minor, well, not a minor thing. It's just something to keep in mind, but I think they were going for this Damascus steel look, and man, did they nail that. That is really pretty. I will put the listing down below if you're interested, but once again, I think, yeah, I just did it again, where I basically stopped it from deploying because I pushed against the lock. I think it's cool, and I would love to see Coast take their game of knives up the same way they're doing with their flashlights. But it's just not for me personally. It is beautiful though, I will give them that. So nice job on the Damascus. That is something I don't see as often, and it looks really nice. Next up, we have a new brand. Okay, not exactly a new brand. This is a sub-brand, Tenable, of Concept Knives. So just like so many of the other companies out there, they are distinguishing their lineups and having different sub-brands that market to different budget orientation, right? So this is their budget brand, but that doesn't mean we're talking about low quality knives by any stretch of the imagination. We have 14C28N, which is a Sandvik Swedish steel. It is a fantastic budget steel, probably one of the best. It has micarta handles, and this has a pretty nice flush screw clip. It is a button lock with with bearings, and check out that action. That is very drop shot. Yep, I like it. I like it. And I really, really like the shape specifically. So this being what it is, kind of curves away from you, is very good for draw cutting. It's good for a variety of different outdoor tasks. I think they were trying to capture the essence of a Nesmuk, which is, I don't want to go into the whole history of it, but it's fascinating if you ever want to look it up. It is traditionally an outdoorsman's knife, and actually to go along with that, this knife has a 90-degree spine, or pretty close to one. It's pretty sharp, which is great for scraping and doing all kinds of outdoor-related tasks as well. This is going to be a nice, tall, flat grind for food prep. And yeah, just a really good offering. I think depending on the pricing, this could be very competitive in the market. And that's really what I want to say with this. There is no question this is a good knife. It's only going to come down to, does it compete at price? This would need to come in under $50, I think, to really be something to catch people's interest. There's just so many knives out there, and they can make a splash, but they're going to have to be very, very aggressive with their pricing scheme, or at least have sales every once in a while to get people to participate. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with this particular design. I'm probably going to check out a few more from them in the future, but as of what I see, I'm pretty happy with it. Next, we have two knives from Vosteed. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is called the Acorn. Now, this has a reversible clip. It's in micarta. It has little brass accents on the pivot. Pretty cool. It is a front flipper design. It also has a cutout for various different other deployments. You can use it with your thumb. You can reverse flick it like that. Surprisingly comfortable. They did a good job with the forward finger choil, making it pretty big so you can actually access it. And the jimping is pretty aggressive, which is good. My biggest critique with this knife is the fact that the jimping does not exist right where you need it, which is right at the point when the curve starts. And it would preferably be very aggressive and small. But thankfully, because that angle is pretty, I'm going to use the right word here. Am I going to use the right word? It just comes more to a point than some which are more rounded. It's the jimping isn't as important. If it was rounded, the jimping becomes far more important to nail. So the fact that the geometry is what it is good. You could see that there's still a chance you can fall off it like I just did. So that's one critique I'll have, but other than that, I don't really have any problems with it. There's plenty of lock bar access. The action is fantastic on bearings. The blade length comes in under 3 inches. Nice full flat grind. Black wash on this 14C 28N blade. Just another really excellent offering from Vosteed. They really nail it pretty much every time, and this one is no exception. Now, the other knife, I've talked about it briefly, but I realized I hadn't done a real spotlight on it. This is the Mini Nightshade. Now, this one is an exclusive partnership between Countycom and Vosteed, so you can only get it on their website. It is a crossbar lock, Ultim handles or PEI, and you actually have, really cool, you actually have the ability to adjust the pivot here. You can even see it through, which is really cool. So you can move it into different spots to make it stronger or weaker. Very, very, very cool. I like that a lot. I never checked if that was true with the original variation. So this one's carbon fiber, S35VN. And yeah, I really like it. In fact, I wasn't sure I was going to, but because I thought it looks really, really small, but still gives me a full 4-fingered grip. Very much appreciated. And this is the smaller version of my favorite knife in existence, the Nightshade from Vosteed, which is a folding version of a shilling cutter knife, a modern iteration of it. And I will tell you, as a cutting implement daily, this is one of the best I've ever used, because even though it has full belly, it leads with the tip very, very well. Let me try to put it on side so you can see that without interacting with your fingers. And it still has the belly and the curve necessary for all kinds of food-related tasks. So it's just a really, really good design. And I'm glad to see there's a more budget-centric version with 14C28N. Now, I'm gonna put a discount code below if you wanna use it. It'll give you 10% off your full order. But I'm gonna give you a warning. When you go to CountyCom, try to have the blinders on as much as possible, because this is a website that you can get lost in very quickly and go, ooh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Oh, they have this on sale. Just trust me, I never walk away from that place without spending more money than I meant to. So just please be careful with CountyCom. They tend to be that kind of place. All right. Overall though, really, really good combination here. I like to see that they're doing these exclusives with other companies and giving people a chance to try different variations that also match different price points as well. I have a friend that insisted I had to pick up this knife, and considering he's someone who happily spends $600 on a Chris Reeve Sebenza and has so many other incredible knives, it really surprised me how much he was talking up this. This is the Iridium from Kershaw. And after holding it, after using it, after carrying it, I get it. I get why he's saying this. First of all, as far as Kershaws are concerned, this feels like a pretty massive step up from some of their older knives. Like, they really took it to a new level with the Iridium, and they needed to be competitive in the market. So this absolutely showcases the modern version of Kershaw knives, and they have executed this very, very well. So it's D2 blade steel. This one has, I believe it's a PVD coating. This is aluminum, which is kind of a black, it's using a, what do you call it? Anyway, it's black. It's like a black finish on this. Pretty smooth. That's my one downside. I would love to have seen some texture. It has steel reinforced liners on top of it. It has the ability to reverse the clip. The clip does have flush screws. Color me impressed. For Kershaw, that's a big deal. And the pricing is very reasonable for a Kershaw. I want to be very clear, for a Kershaw. I still think that this is a little bit overpriced in the market if you're just looking at materials and the combination, but not by all that much. What makes this knife amazing, if you were to see this in a big box store, the Kershaw Iridium, it is going to be probably the best knife on the shelf. I almost guarantee it. About dollar for dollar. I think they're gonna sell probably in a big box store around that $60 price. And at that price, yeah, it's just so much better than anything else you'll find out there, at least in those stores, right? There's a lot of competition out there otherwise, but for Kershaw to deliver on a good knife of this caliber in a reasonable price point with their incredible warranty, and they do have excellent customer service, or at least that's been my experience. Yeah, I'm down. I'm down for this. I am. I really like this one. I will say, if you're going to get one, make sure it's the black coated version, because D2, it's not exactly the most corrosion resistant thing. So if you're going to use the knife really hard, you're going to use it in the outdoors, whatever, you definitely want to have that coated blade. It's just less to maintain, and that's usually a pretty good idea. I would be happy to use this as my EDC, and it's just a really, really solid knife. Now, I definitely have a love-hate relationship with Sencut in general. A lot of times I say, well, why would I bother when Civivi exists, and especially because the price points tend to hover between $40 and $50. But every once in a while, they'll properly price a knife, or even have it above and beyond what I expect, and this is an example of that situation. So this knife is currently, as of the filming of this video, in all three varieties, under $30. I think this was $26.99 or $27. And for that price, a D2 blade with the black wash, with G10, with excellent, excellent action, yeah, it's really good. It even has a fuller so you can reverse flick the knife. And can I thumb flick it? Oh yeah, absolutely. And that is really good, like really good pricing. That's the way it should be. Now, I'm not sure that that's sustainable for them, but if this was under 35 bucks, I'd be very pleased, and even comparable to almost anything else on the market, right? I'd be happy to take this over almost anything else. And it reminds me, this particular knife reminds me of one of my favorite discontinued models. This is the Voltaic. It is one of my absolute favorite Civivi knives. Same parent company, by the way. You could kind of see some of the similarities, similar in length, but the fact that this is $27 right now is certainly worth mentioning. It is probably the cheapest knife on this list and is a no-brainer. At that price, as long as it stays there, this is a great buy and will stay in my sub 30 bag to point out in the future. As long as it's less than 30 bucks, this is going to be a fantastic value. It's got decent jimping, although that's not particularly important. I like the way this is set up, and the stop is actually floating, which is really, really cool. They just did a really good job. Still hollowed out liners, reversible clip. What's more to say? I mean, this is just executed correctly at the right price. This is what I expect. And I don't really have to go through all the dialing, and is it centered, all that stuff. Consistently, you will get good knives coming out of Sencut and the We Knife Co. It's an exception to the rule whenever I see something not done well from them. And if you return it, they will always get you a new knife. Whether you bought it from Amazon or bought it directly from on their website, they're gonna take care of you. That's been my experience with We Knife Co. in general. And at $28, that is a home run slam dunk of a knife. Not much more to say here. Now to finish off, I have 3 knives from Kizer, and the first one is a Nitro V version of the Cormorant. Now this is designed to be a much more budget-friendly version of the knife. Now before you go and buy this, I want to reiterate that currently on Amazon, you can buy a variant of the S35VN for less money than this one right here. For whatever reason, there is a singular variant that is available right now for less than $70. But that won't be true for long. I will put a listing for both. I highly recommend scouting them out. Kizer does this from time to time, and it's just important to know, okay? But the new variation, one thing that they have in spades, this handle is awesome. In addition to being awesome because it's, you know, Tetris themed, this is crazy grippy. All those little cutouts where the little black is raised, it is stupid grippy. I love it. In fact, it's so grippy, I might have to file in under the pocket clip. Speaking of the pocket clip, flush screws and a cutout for it, so no problems there. It is a button lock knife, and this one actually has deployment that is both a front flipper and a back flipper. So the Cormorant has all of the fidget factor you could possibly want. You can flick it open with the button, you can thumb flick the knife, you can revert, you know, top flip the knife, you can pull it over like that, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. Now, the other things I want to say that are really awesome, this is a hollow ground blade, which makes it incredibly slicey. It's an ideal cutting edge if you're trying to, you know, use this as an EDC knife. I actually prefer it if they're done well. A hollow grind is awesome. And the Nitro V in this particular case follows the trend that we've talked about in my last video on Kizer, which is that they are heat treating the Nitro V to a higher level. I'm going to say this just briefly. When you have a tough steel, which Nitro V is, improving its performance and edge retention by raising its hardness will lower its toughness somewhat. But you get a lot more out of doing that on a tough steel than you would on a steel that doesn't have the toughness in the first place. This is already going to be twice as tough at 62 HRC as S35 is, okay, at 60. That's important to note. So according to Larry Thomas, this is about 17 foot-pounds at 62. That's the highest range. And this one is around 7 to 8 to 9 foot-pounds of strength. And this is considered a tougher premium steel. So to give you an idea, okay? So it is pretty important to note. And this actually might have better edge retention than is expected. We're gonna test that at a later time, but it's certainly of note. And this is a fantastic variant. So definitely going to be great. Hopefully, once the pricing of this goes back up, it will make more sense. But either one, you want to pick the lowest of the two. This right now is probably your best bet to get one in S35. The pricing is just too good. But as soon as that's not the case, this will be a really, really good choice. Now this is the last one we're going to talk about, and it is the Gemini. Now this is a Ray Lanico design, and the thing I want to really point out here is not necessarily that I care that it's in Ultim. What I care about is the fact that this is one of the nicest grips on any knife that I've ever experienced. The edges on this milling are just fantastic. They really did an incredible job with this. I will tell you that once again, this is almost a little bit too extreme underneath the pocket clip area, but I kind of prefer that, to be honest, than having it be kind of loose or smooth. This has hollowed out steel liners. It has an Ultim backspacer. We are in Nitro V once again, which I am all about. And the same thing is true with this knife as it was with the last one. They are heat treating it a little bit harder, which really makes a lot of sense with both 14C as well as Nitro V. Man, the action on this is wild. It is designed by Ray Lanico. I am a huge, huge fan of his work. He does some of the best handles in the business, and this one is no exception. Designed very well, very comfortable in hand, just a good all-around knife. It's not particularly fancy. It has one way to deploy it. If I was going to add one thing, it might be a fuller or a cutout of some sort, something I can use to reverse flick the knife. It's not a big deal, but it would be a nice little added touch that I think would make the Gemini just a little bit more distinctive, give it some more competitive edge with all the other knives in existence. But done very, very well, came sharp out of the box, as we'd expect from Kizer. Full flat grind. Not much more to say. Another fantastic offering from Kizer. A continuation of the Gemini series. This might be my favorite texture they've shown on it yet, and definitely something to check out. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me during my knife week. If there is a specific category, price point, size, or design that you think I should be checking out that I should talk about, let me know down in the comments. As always, thank you for your time, and we'll talk again soon.